Hogarth and welcome to Southwest Magazine. My guest today is TJ Harvey, who is seeking leadership of the New Brunswick Liberal Party. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, and thank you for the opportunity.
Well, I'd love to start off. I know that the vote's happening in the next, starting on July 30th,
Yes.
Running till August 6th. So I'd love to give you the chance first off to just introduce yourself to the viewers at home and to voters, a little bit about your background.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here, first of all, and certainly my name's TJ Harvey. TJ stands for Thomas Joseph, originally from a small community kind of towards the center of the province called Juniper. Grew up there on a small family farm with my brothers and sisters, and that's my community of interest, the Florenceville-Bristol area, and I currently reside in Clearview, New Brunswick, about 20 minutes north of Florenceville, about 25 minutes south of Grand Falls, with my 3 out of my 4 kids. My oldest daughter, Emma, is just finished second year university in Nova Scotia, and then Madeline, Sarah, and Jack reside with me in that area, and that's where I call home.
Can you tell me a little bit about the start of your political career, which you started quite young, in federal politics?
So my background within the party has always been more on the provincial side, but mostly at the grassroots level. So from the time I was 20 until now, I've always either been like a provincial riding vice president or president of a local association, the vice president or the president of the federal association in my region, and before and after federal politics, several years on each side, I've been the regional director for the Liberal Party provincially in the Valley region that runs from Grand Falls to Fredericton. So my background in the party has been very much grassroots-based, organization, fundraising, team building, kind of in the St. John River Valley. And of course, I was elected federally between 2015 and 2019 as the Member of Parliament for Tobic-Mactaquac. During that time, I sat as the National Rural Caucus Chair for 1 out of the 4 years that I was elected federally. I also chaired an all-party caucus on ag innovation and automation that had membership from all the major political parties in Canada, so about 160 members total from across the country. I sat on the standing committees on Indigenous and Northern Affairs, the standing committee on natural resources, and the standing committee on public accounts.
And why did you step away from federal politics at the time that you did?
So if you look at your role as a federal politician, it's really divided into 2 parts. And the work that you do in Ottawa, for the most part, is on a national level, connected with national policy, and the work that you do at the riding level for your constituents is completely different type of work than what you do in Ottawa. And what I found over the 4-year period that I was elected federally is that the part of the role that I was truly passionate about was the work that we were doing in the province, in my riding, working with small and medium-sized businesses, advocating on behalf of people for things like CPP disability and Canada Child Benefit, and working with families in the St. John River Valley. And so for me, I think it's a natural progression for me to want to be involved politically more at the provincial level. And so I decided to not reoffer in 2019. And since then, I've been back working in my business. And of course, at that time, I didn't know that this opportunity would present itself now. But with politics, you can never be sure of what the timing is. And so I stepped away from federal politics and have been working in my business, and I'm really happy that I've had the opportunity over the last 18 months to travel the province and meet with New Brunswickers from corner to corner and have conversations about the priorities that are important to them.
Now, you were the first, I believe, of the 4 candidates for Liberal leader to declare that you were running. What was it about, and I know you've slightly answered this, but provincial politics that drew you back at the time that it did specifically?
Yeah, so I think after the election loss in 2020, I felt like there was a void within the party, and feeling a need for us to start, working at rebuilding riding associations and start thinking about the next election. And as I've done oftentimes in my business opportunities in the past, and in the careers that I've worked in transportation and construction and large-scale agriculture and agri-food processing, when I see an issue that I think needs to be dealt with, I jump on that issue and I put my whole heart into it. So I made up my mind shortly after the last provincial election that I was going to run for the leadership, and since then, every day at some point or on some level, I've been traveling and having conversations and drumming up support for the leadership and working to reinvigorate the Liberal Party of New Brunswick.
And you've obviously touched on this too. What do you think it was that the Liberals they did lose some traction last election, is fair to say. Why do you think that is, and what do you think took it off track?
I think, you know, there was a variety of factors. One, I think, you know, having an election in the middle of the pandemic, people were concerned about their own safety and the safety of their families. They were worried about the healthcare system, which of course has continued on to now, and really feeling vulnerable. And I think they were looking for a sense of security. So of course the natural tendency would be to vote for the incumbent government at that time. And we saw that be the case in various elections, both provincially and federally across the country. So I think that that played a major role. And I think that for us as a party, we were coming off a tough election in 2018. Of course, the leader of the day was not in the House and was fairly new to provincial politics here in New Brunswick. And I think that those all played contributing factors. I commend Mr. Vickers for his hard work and all the effort he put into, you know, working to rebuild the party at that time. And certainly it was a disappointing loss for us as a party. And I think it's something that we need to be cognizant of.
What is it about your background, your career, both in politics and in the private sector, that you think sets you up to be a good leader of the Liberal Party?
I think that the people that know me and know me best would characterize me as a person of action, a doer, somebody that traditionally rolls up their sleeves and puts in the heavy lifting to work on whatever I'm passionate about. And so that's been very evident in my private sector career, where I've enjoyed success in large-scale agriculture, transportation, agri-food processing, and construction. The majority of the time building and managing small and medium-sized businesses for my own, and some working for other companies. And I think that background, combined with 4 years in federal office and having had the opportunity to look at how policy is formulated and what some of the pitfalls can be for government trying to implement policy from the other side, give me a pretty broad perspective of what's going to be required to move this province in a direction that's more focused on a long-term vision for what the province could be, and less focused on a transactional vision that's reflective of what, you know, the province needs to have happen in a 12-month fiscal cycle.
Do you, what excites you about working on that provincial level versus federal? Do you feel there's more that you can do as a politician?
Yeah, well, I think the machinery of government is always the question. So, of course, municipal politics is by far the most maneuverable lever of government. Provincial is a little bit more difficult, and federal can be very cumbersome at times. And I think, for me, provincial governance is really close to the people. It's close to small businesses, it's close to medium-sized businesses, and we're a small province. 4.5 hours will drive you from corner to corner, no matter which direction. And it's really a space where you can get out and engage with people in their communities, in their businesses, have conversations with them where they work, where they live, at their kitchen table. And when you reach out and have conversations with somebody at their kitchen table, that's their kingdom, that's their piece of the world. And so it's important that we reach out and engage New Brunswickers, north and south, east and west, francophone and anglophone, where they live, where they work, and where they enjoy their free time. And so for me, I think that proximity to government is what's really allows us the capacity to go out and do that. And for me, it's something I'm truly excited about. And
New Brunswick definitely has that wonderful vibe of being a door-to-door province, like you said, 4.5 hours, one end to the other. You declared that you were running early, so it's really given you the opportunity to be on the campaign trail for quite some time. Where has it taken you, and what are you hearing from people as you do engage?
Yeah, so first, in terms of where it's taking me, I can say that it's led me to a place where over the last 18 months, I've put about 170,000 kilometers on my Jeep. And I've literally traveled from corner to corner, you know, from Lamech to St. Andrews, and from St. Francois to Shediac. And I've enjoyed the opportunity to get out and speak with people in their communities and hear about the issues that are important to them. Of course, the issues that I find are at the top of mind for the most New Brunswickers, of course, are healthcare, which continues to be a large file and will continue to be, you know, a dominant file for years to come. People are also concerned about affordability. And so when we're talking about the economy, it's not always about, you know, economic development and how we help businesses. It's about how we make life more affordable for average New Brunswickers. And I think when you're traveling, regardless which community you're in, more and more day over day. Affordability in people's daily lives is starting to become top of mind for a lot of families.
We're sitting today in the provincial riding of St. Croix, which is fairly Anglophone, but as you mentioned, you're traveling from riding to riding across the province. Leaders can be criticized when they're not perfectly bilingual. How do you describe that aspect of your person?
Yeah, for myself, I think for sure my journey learning French as a second language has been a work in progress and something that I've worked feverishly hard at since 2015 when I was elected federally. And it started with a night course at CCNB in Grand Falls, one night a week for I think 6 months. And then after I was elected federally, I started working at it weekly in my office. And then over the last 12 months, I've actually spent 3 weeks of intensive French language training in Shippigan at the Université de Moncton campus, and practice, usually an hour a day, every day. And I'm using all the tools at my availability to do so. Et je pense pour certains, c'est vraiment important pour tous les citoyens de la province d'avoir la chance d'être représentés par un chef qui parle dans la langue de leur choix, de les enjeux qui est important pour toute la province. And that's exactly the type of leader that I plan to be.
Well, I commend you for that. I do Duolingo every day too, and I definitely speak French like an Anglophone, but I know how challenging it is to do that, so that's wonderful. Can you tell me what it's like being on the campaign trail with the other candidates? I know there have been multiple forums that have happened, especially over the course of the summer. What have you taken away from that? I know that the four of you have been actually quite supportive of each other. But on that note, what do you think separates you from the rest and makes you the better candidate?
I think first and foremost, I would say that this conversation about the leadership of the New Brunswick Liberal Party is very much attuned to a group of kids sitting around the kitchen table, and we're kind of arguing over who's going to get the mashed potatoes. And what's important of that conversation is to remember that at the end of the day, no matter who wins, that we're all still united and we're all still a family. And I think that that's something that's lacked from the Liberal Party over the last 10 or 15 years. We've picked sides and become divided through leaderships, and it's something that we just simply can't afford to do going forward. We're a small party in a small province, and we need to be united as progressives. And I think having had the opportunity to travel the province and do these forums with the other three candidates, they're all good people, and you recognize that. And I've pre-existing working relationships with all three, and they all bring a different value proposition to the party. And I believe that value proposition is informed by their life circumstances. And so for me, I think that my value proposition to the party is that I've had a very diverse career in some of our province's primary industries and in secondary manufacturing, building and managing and operating businesses with small gross revenues from 500,000 to 600,000 all the way to 40 or 50 million. And I think that experience combined with my time in federal office and my exposure to the issues that affect rural New Brunswickers in rural parts of the province give me a distinct value proposition to the party. And certainly as an Anglophone that comes from a part of the province that people would perceive as being difficult at times to win as a Liberal, I think it gives me a unique perspective of what it's going to take to reorganize the party, to fundraise and build teams in all 49 ridings going into the next election. Because at the end of the day, if we want to be successful in the next election, we need to be relevant in all 49 ridings. And I think that my French language skills combined with my background and the intensity with which I do just about everything position me very well to hold our base in the 16 ridings that we currently have, but to grow the party ultimately in the ridings that we don't, in the regions that we don't currently hold. And I think that for me, that's my value proposition to the party, and something that I think makes me a little bit more unique than some of the other candidates.
Now, your track record obviously shows that you're capable of winning a riding, and a federal one at that, where there are much less ridings federally in New Brunswick. You're currently not an MLA, though. Do you know where you would run?
Yeah, I think that certainly following the leadership conclusion on August the 6th, it'll be a priority for me to find a riding and have conversations where we can try to get into the ledge as soon as possible through a by-election. That's certainly a priority for me. And at the same time, I think it's equally important that before that happens, that the new leader, and hopefully that's myself, has the time to go out and start that rebuilding process in ridings all around the province. So I think that hopefully within a 6 or 8 month period, we'll be able to have a seat in the legislature, should I be elected leader. And in the meantime, there's a ton of work to be done to start the rebuilding process of the Liberal Party of New Brunswick. And then certainly in the next provincial election, it would be my hope to run in one of the ridings that is in my former federal riding of Tobique-Mactaquac. So there's 5 provincial ridings there, and I haven't yet made a decision as to which one of those ridings I would run in, but certainly it would be my plan to run in one of the ridings that I formerly represented as a Member of Parliament.
Now, aside from just strengthening the foundation of the party in New Brunswick, the Liberal Party, what will the challenges be of the next election when we're looking at specifically something like the People's Alliance joining the Conservatives here? Is that something that's of mind in terms of what a challenge is?
I think for sure we need to recognize where our strengths are and what our weaknesses are. And in rural parts of the province, we've got a lot of work to do on the value proposition or the brand proposition that we want to give to New Brunswickers, and how we position the party once again to be a big tent party that's representative of a multitude of views from different viewpoints, both rural and urban, francophone and anglophone, in center, center right, center left. I believe that historically the Liberal Party has been a big tent party in New Brunswick, and in recent years we narrowed our focus. We kind of said this is what a Liberal is in New Brunswick, and we need to get back to a space where we're open and inclusive and building teams that are representative of broad viewpoints. And before we can be relevant to New Brunswickers, we need to spend some time challenging our own opinions and thoughts within our party. And I think that that's all very healthy. And so for me, I think that having conversations with people that are maybe small c conservatives and people that have traditionally been members of the Green Party or members of the NDP are all very helpful. And I think that if those people can get engaged in the process and be part of the rebuilding process of the Liberal Party of New Brunswick, then their thoughts and opinions become part of the value proposition that we bring to New Brunswickers in the next election. And certainly I think that diversified view of what the province's future could look like is something that's hugely important to New Brunswickers, and something for me personally I think is hugely important that we showcase that as part of the value proposition that we want to bring to the province.
New Brunswick has a long history of a riding can change its mind. It's a door-to-door province, and there is a benefit to that, if you are the right candidate, people are willing to switch. There isn't necessarily that party alliance that we see maybe in somewhere like Alberta.
Right.
Is that an advantage to you going into this next election, do you think?
I think so. I think we really need to go out and engage with 3 groups of people. So, in my campaign, and I know the other candidates have been doing this as well, we're really trying to engage 3 groups of people. So traditional Liberals that are still engaged in the party, still engaged in the process, and want to be part of the party's future. The second group of people is new people. So people that traditionally haven't seen themselves in the Liberal Party before, but want to get engaged, want to get involved, and want to be part of that shared vision or value proposition to the province for its future. And then I think the third group of people, which is a big group of people, are traditional Liberals that have been disenfranchised and because of that have been disengaged in the process in recent years. And so you bring those 3 groups of people together, and the biggest step is the next step. So when the leadership's over with, the new leader of the day, and hopefully, for my opinion at least, hope that will be me, needs to go out and engage with those groups of people to build teams and talk about policy and fundraise in every region of the province, in every riding in the province. And it's through that type of process that you will create a collective vision for the province's future that's representative of all 49 ridings and of various viewpoints on a whole plethora of issues. You'll also use that process to engage people that want to run for contested nominations in every riding around the province. And at the end of the day, when we go into the next election, if we have the right leader with the right message and the right team of candidates and the right team of volunteers behind them, we can be successful in any one of the 49 ridings in the province of New Brunswick. And it's always interesting when I'm talking to people to note that in the last 25 years, every riding in the province of New Brunswick has been held by the Liberal Party at some point. So there are no unwinnable ridings, and they're all important to the party.
What are the challenges? You mentioned healthcare, you mentioned the housing crisis, that you think will be the biggest challenges for New Brunswick going forward?
Yeah, one thing I would say is that I think, from my perspective at least, that these challenges, they're all tied together. So, healthcare and how we look at healthcare going forward is hugely important to New Brunswickers. And from traveling and having conversations with people and engaging them about an issue like healthcare, I think what we've ascertained is that New Brunswickers think that we need to deal with these issues head on. And so that means making strategic investments in how we modernize our infrastructure. So how we modernize the delivery platforms that we use to deliver healthcare services through digitization and automation, investing in our people. So recognizing that, if we want to attract nurses and doctors and nurse practitioners and advanced care paramedics and pharmacists to come to the province of New Brunswick and to stay in the province of New Brunswick, then they need to, number one, feel like they're engaged in the process of policy development in their career. They also need to feel like they're being adequately compensated for the work that they're doing for New Brunswickers. And I think if the pandemic has done one thing, it's brought that to the forefront. And I think New Brunswickers are saying, yeah, we need to make sure that these people are looked after because they're the people that look after us. Mm-hmm. And then I think the third piece on healthcare is that we need to spend some time thinking about preventative healthcare. So, a seniors aging strategy and how we work with seniors to help them stay in their homes if that's the choice that they want to make, or how we help them transition to the next stage of their lives. And certainly mental health and addictions, and coming out of the pandemic, and I have 4 kids myself, it's interesting to see how the pandemic and the isolation that was created through that has affected each of my own children differently, and how I see it affecting other people's children and couples that feel like they're cut off from their friends and their family and seniors. So I think focusing on mental health and how we help people with those issues is hugely important on an issue like healthcare. Then the other major issues I think are population growth. So population growth to me in the short term is all about immigration. It's about how we attract and retain newcomers to New Brunswick, how we fix the system so that we can do a better job of skills accreditation and helping people transition into new careers in New Brunswick with the talents that they already have, and recognizing the wealth of experience that they have in whatever province or country they come from. If they're coming to New Brunswick and they want to build a life here and have a career here, then we want them to be able to work in their field of study. So I think we've got a lot of work to do in that area. And then long term, I think population growth is about, how do we, through education, attract more students to come to New Brunswick and get a world-class education in one of our post-secondary institutions, either on the university side or on the vocational side. And then how do we convince those students to stay in New Brunswick for 5 years or 10 years post-secondary, and build a career here. And I think if we can convince students to stay in New Brunswick and incentivize them to stay in the province and build a career here and raise a family here, then over a long period of time, that too plays a key role in population growth.
Mm-hmm. Are there assets that New Brunswick has, attributes that you think set it apart from other provinces or other places in the world that aren't really being tapped to their full potential just yet?
Yeah, I mean, to name a few, I would say first and foremost, we have access to 2 deep water ports, fully developed deep water ports, and then of course we have smaller ports here in the province that are underutilized, and we're starting to see over the last few years like the Port of Baldoon and the Port of St. John kind of getting reinvigorated. And so I think those are huge assets, and those assets are also the home to doorstep rail service. So we have world-class rail systems that are running to all of our deep water ports here in the province, and even in regions all over the province. So whether it's in the Baldoon region or in southwestern New Brunswick with the Southern Railway, we're seeing massive investments in rail infrastructure as part of a strategy to how we move goods around North America. So I think those are hugely important. And then New Brunswick is also home to the intersection of the largest continuous highway in Canada and the largest continuous highway in the United States. So the I-95 and the Trans-Canada. And so its intersection point in western New Brunswick, combined with our access to port, our massive footprint on a global stage in things like aquaculture, fisheries, large-scale agriculture and agri-food processing, and forestry, combined with being a fully bilingual province, positions us very well on the global stage for growth in the future.
Well, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to give you the final word. Why should people who are about to vote for the next leader of the Liberal Party vote for you?
Well, thank you, and certainly I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and to people that are watching, I would say, you know, this is really a choice about what the future of the Liberal Party looks like. And for me, I think that the value proposition that I bring to the party is that I'm an Anglophone from rural New Brunswick that can speak fluent French, and that can go out and build on the base that we already have in certain parts of the province to win the next election. And to me, you know, to the party membership and to New Brunswickers as a whole, I think at the end of the day, we can do better than what we've seen. And I'm not picking apart the current government, but what I am saying is that this is an approach to governance that's very transactional, and it's focused on getting from one budget cycle to the next budget cycle. And I think what I'm offering to first the Liberal Party of New Brunswick, and then to New Brunswickers as a whole, is the opportunity for a collaborative, collective, shared vision for the province's future that's imaginative and reflective of where we want to see the province in the next 25 to 30 years. And it's not all about my ideas and my plan. It's about how we collectively work together to rebuild the party and then position the province to take advantage of opportunities in the future.
Thank you so much for making time for us today and for coming into St. Andrews to sit down with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
My guest today has been TJ Harvey, who is seeking leadership of the New Brunswick Liberal Party. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Southwest Magazine.
Southwest Magazine is a news and public affairs production of CHCO Television.